Now, if you're just joining us, we're in the midst of our political debate. Fianna Fáil Councillor Robert Troy is in studio, as is Fine Gael Councillor Peter Burke from the Longford Westmeath constituency. On the Laois Offaly side of the divide, Sinn Fein is represented by Councillor Brian Stanley and the Labour Party by their candidate John Whelan. Let's turn our attention to jobs. Peter Burke, the Fine Gael approach to job creation is what exactly?
We're aiming to invest heavily in infrastructure, and examples of this would be for our water. $500 million is lost on water by the time it gets to our taps. At the moment we are flushing water down the toilet that's the same quality as Ballygown you buy out of a bottle in a shop. So our whole approach has to change in this. There are 34 local authorities now discharging our water services. We want to centralise our water services. Broadband is another huge area. As I said, there's a huge area in our constituency that hasn't got broadband rollout. We want to make Ireland into the top 5 OECD countries for broadband delivery. And it's critical that to get infrastructure in, these supporting bases have to be there.
Okay, but what about the cost of business? Because the reason most employers will tell you they can't take more people on is because it costs too much, be it through commercial rates, PRSI, measures like that. What are you proposing? We're
planning to abolish the 8.5% lower rate of PRSI to make it easier for people, or employers, to employ people, because we need to support businesses in this time, you know. It's all about rewarding enterprise, and the Fine Gael plan is rewarding enterprise, and Fine Gael is the only party that can do this, because in the past we've had Fianna Fáil, who was very close to the developers and the bankers. The Labour Party is in bed with the unions. Our party is the only party that will take on the vested interests and deliver a solid jobs package to Ireland.
But will you deliver? Because the point was made last night in the debate on television that Fine Gael controls more local authorities in this country than any other party. And how many local authorities have reduced commercial rates within the last year? Can you tell us?
The reality of it is,
can you tell us how many local authorities controlled by Fine Gael have reduced commercial rates?
But you're missing the whole point here, because obviously you don't understand the system. To make any waiver system.
Do I not understand?
If you let me explain, to make any waiver system in the rates budget, to give anyone a break within the rates budget, you have to get explicit permission from the Minister of Local Government. Councillors have no right to, let's say, if you had first-time businesses and you wanted to give them, let's say, 75% break at the start, 50% break.
The issue is whether the budget in a local authority is approved by the members of the council, is it not?
The budget is given by the executive. There's a precedent there. A council was disbanded before because they wouldn't adopt the rate. So we want to get real here. To say that local authority members have full control over the rate budget is not correct. And I got Deputy Phil Hogan to put down a question to Minister John Gormley to clarify this issue, and any waiver scheme. And what we're trying to do here is to support new business, get business into the system. If you want to get new businesses there and give them a waiver system, the local authority has to get explicit permission. I want to be clear about this from the Minister for local government to do that.
Okay, and that's why
Robert Troy, how will your party help businesses
local authority members need more power.
Can I just clarify that? The local authority does have the function. It's one of the two reserve functions that is for members, that you can increase rates, you can decrease rates. Westmeath County Council for the last 2 years maintained their rates. There was no increase in rates. I want to make that point.
Okay, but on the point of job creation.
On the point of job creation, as I said in my opening words, I think the key areas for jobs growth in our region is agriculture, tourism, and the support for the small and medium-sized businesses. Agriculture is crucially important in a rural constituency, and I said Fianna Fáil has shown their commitment to the agriculture sector in maintaining the level of payments in 2010, as I outlined earlier on. 34 million received by farmers in Westmeath in the single farm payment scheme, 5 million received under disadvantaged dairy aid, 5.5 million received under the farm waste management scheme.
But another plank of your strategy that you mentioned referred to small businesses. And what has Fianna Fáil done? Let's look at your track record. What has Fianna Fáil done in its current term in government to help small businesses?
Well, I think one of the major issues in terms of small businesses over the last number of years is the lack of credit that they seem to be getting. They don't seem to be getting the required support from the banks.
Right, and have you corrected that?
And the government, through the Credit Review Office, is ensuring, and both AIB and Bank of Ireland, who are now under the control of the state, have committed to providing an extra 12 billion in lending to small and medium businesses over the course of this year.
A point that people here will dispute. Looking into the future then, what will you do for small businesses?
Well, I think going into the future, we have to look at trying to reduce red tape for small businesses. We have to look at bringing the cost for doing business down. We have already indicated in the 2010 budget that we're extending the employers' PRSI incentive scheme, whereby business, if they're taking on somebody new, the employer's PRSI is exempt for the first year of employment. That is a real asset or advantage to an incentive for businesses to take on new people.
Okay, Labour's John Whelan, you want to dispute some of those points?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone knows, the dogs in the street know that the banks aren't lending, and that's why one of Labour's key strategies, the government now must get involved in job creation and stimulating the economy immediately before it stagnates and spirals further downwards. A strategic investment bank to kickstart the economy, to support small and medium-sized industries, businesses, and if each one of those small businesses just took on one more person, that would be 200,000 new jobs.
Okay, why approach it through a new bank? Why not simply make the current system work?
No, the fact of the matter is the banking system is broken. The IMF are in town despite Fianna Fáil denials that we're coming in. What we have to do is start tomorrow. We have to get money flowing in the economy. Ask any small business, they can't get their hands on cash flow or money for expansion or seed capital.
But by building a new bank with capital of €2 billion, what difference is that going to make?
This is what Finland and Sweden did in the past, and indeed Germany. The fact of the matter is that we must act immediately. We can't wait for a Bank of Ireland and AIB to be put right. It's going to take too long. We must act now, and people want immediate action. We've also set up a 500 million jobs creation fund so as we can build, for instance...
And on that headline number, if you compare it to Fine Gael and Sinn Fein, they're talking in the order of €7 billion. So yours seems to pale by comparison. So what's that?
No, our figures are grounded in reality. We believe there's a €5 billion gap in the Fine Gael figure. We believe they're going to have to increase taxes. We believe they're going to have to increase rates, in fact, because the European Commission said this week that the Fine Gael figures don't add up. And there's one other thing
They argue their figures are based on the same forecast that yours are.
No, not at all. That's why we revised and reviewed our plan and launched a new strategy for this campaign, because the figures that Fine Gael are basing their policy on, their policy predicated on out-of-date figures of over a year ago. And there's one other thing we must fear, is an overall Fine Gael majority government, or a government of Fine Gael propped up by two Greens.
Okay.
Because the plan is, to sell off state companies like ESB and Quilta. We won't be able to go for a walk in the woods if Fine Gael have their way.
Peter Burke will want to get back in on that.
That's not correct to say that Bournemouth is going to be sold out or ESB is going to be sold out.
That's what you're saying.
It's not correct.
You're talking about merging Bournemouth and Quilta, for the record, but we will let you get back in. I want to give Brian Stanley the opportunity to talk about the Sinn Féin jobs plan.
We put forward 80 separate job creation proposals 16 months ago. We didn't wait for the election to come like other parties. We put forward those, and I just outlined some of those for you. I won't outline all 80, Phil. I'll outline some of them. The key ones would be is that you would have a state investment bank. There's huge savings out there at the moment. People are saving a lot of money. That money can be used in a purposeful way. The broadband situation, that is one that we've been highlighting for a long time. The need to put broadband, particularly into areas of Laois, Offaly, Longford and Westmeath, where people haven't access to it. I know several people in my own area, who can't get proper broadband, who are running small businesses in rural areas. We need to have a €300 million jobs retention fund for SMEs, viable SMEs who are struggling to get credit, and we've highlighted that.
You also talk extensively about the building programme, building schools, building primary care facilities. What happens when those projects run out?
Well, can I just highlight the school building programme? One of the issues in relation to the school building programme, if you take it last year, the government didn't spend anything like the money that was there for it at the time. What we're saying is this is a win-win-win situation, because, by building new schools, while the cost of them is cheap, you're getting people back into work, local tradespeople back into work, building those. You're getting children in.
But for how long?
You're getting children into good school places, and you're also saving the taxpayer money on renting prefabs. We accept that it's a kickstart, but it's better to do that now while the cost of building them is cheap. But just a couple of other things. The whole agri-food sector, what we want is to have a completely new country of origin labelling system, a new improved one, to promote Irish food as safe, healthy and GM-free. That's very, very important. The need for a green energy agency. 87% of our fuel is imported. So this is a win-win situation. It will help to balance the payments because you're getting people into work here. You're also saving money on stopping money from going out of the country by not having to import so much fuel. And there's one very important one that's actually, it's a cost-neutral one. The whole situation with the multinationals, Sinn Féin want to retain the 12.5% tax rate, or corporation tax rate, on multinationals at all costs.
And for domestics?
But on top of that,
Will domestic companies benefit from that?
No, we're talking about multinationals here. We would like to see it. Absolutely, and we've said that the same incentives should be given to domestic companies. But just in the case of multinationals, which is what I'm speaking about at the moment, in the case of multinational companies, we want to keep that 12.5% corporation tax there. But to add on to that, what we would do is that multinational companies at the moment who source goods and services from outside of Ireland, if they swap for an Irish replacement, Sinn Féin would give them tax breaks for that, and that would help local companies, local economies in places like Offaly and Laois to prosper.
I need to give Peter Burke an opportunity to respond to some of the points made by Labour's John Whelan. He asserted that there's a €5 billion hole in Fine Gael's finance plan, and also that agencies like Quailter will be sold off and we can't go walking in the woods.
Just to say, to be clear about those issues, first of all, there's no hole in the Fine Gael plan. The Labour Party are a high tax party. They are the only party at our last budget that would not accept the 3% deficit by 2014 and would not put forward a 5-year plan in the Dáil for debate and review on. They did not accept both targets which were handed down by the IMF at that stage. Now, we can all go around talking in an imaginary land, but we have to get real about these issues. You know, you have to put forward a credible plan if you're going to debate these issues. Our plan is approved by the IMF. Our New Era plan was looked at by the IMF and approved by it.
Okay, well,
and we have an agreement in a number of
some
areas.
Of the assumptions. If there is a hole in the finances, which could easily happen if the growth rate isn't as expected or tax revenues are lower than you forecast, what will be the Fine Gael approach to making that correction then? Because sooner or later, will you not have to examine taxation?
Will, it's very clear that our ambition and aim, and we are confident of doing this, is to stimulate the economy. Gareth Fitzgerald said in his time in government, there's two things you cannot cut back on. One is education and the other is infrastructure.
Can we deal with the matter of taxation? Do you accept that if your forecasts are wrong, you will have to resort to greater taxation?
Our forecasts have been approved by the ERSI, which is the most eminent economic policy division.
Which has been wrong before. So, if those forecasts are inaccurate, if the revenue taken by the state is lower than projected, when will you resort to increasing taxes?
Well, you're talking about imaginary things here that haven't happened.
But so
our plan,
you're basing it on forecasts.
Hold on now. We sent a group of our finance team into the Department of Finance. We've met with the IMF. We've met with the ERSI. We have got our plan approved and our figures have come from all very eminent sources, and that's what we're fighting the election on.
Okay,
and we
John
expect
Whelan,
we're the only party that can stimulate this economy and get our country back.
It's important to correct the record here. A majority Fine Gael government will ride roughshod over the frontline public services. Leo Varadkar can't wait to get his hands on slash to 30,000 jobs.
Correct.
Labour is not a high tax party because we have given an absolute pledge, and Eamon Gilmore repeats it every day. There will be no new income tax increases for any worker earning less than 100,000, and that's a fact.
Okay, last word to Robert Troy.
I realise our unemployment level is unacceptably high, but we cannot lose fact that we're still 700,000 people more employed now than there was in 1997, and we also have last year our highest figures on exports on record. Ireland stock of direct investment is 5 times greater than the OECD average.
Yes, but the domestic economy is very much deflated.
We need to maintain, and I think there's a common consensus of all parties here this morning that it's critically important that we maintain our corporation tax rate of 12.5%, because the corporation tax, the foreign direct investment, supports almost 250,000 jobs in this country.
Yeah, but there seems to be an agenda in Europe, and Angela Merkel's officials articulated this yesterday, that Ireland may have to concede that corporation tax rate if a reduced interest rate can be negotiated. Now, what effect will that have?
Well, all political parties and our leaders of all political parties have quite clearly said that the 12.5% taxation rate is not for renegotiation. We have got a commitment at the time of our last Lisbon II treaty to say quite clearly in the treaty that the setting of taxation policies is a matter for our domestic government, and that's in writing in the treaty. So it's not going to come up.
Right, and just for the record, everybody agrees on that. Corporation tax at the current rate of sacrosanct.
Absolutely. Because just coming to one point there, Robert made, he said that that is for the government alone. Not anymore, Robert, because we have the IMF in town. We have the ECB in town, and he who pays the piper calls the tune. And that's the problem with the bailout that your three parties
we are completely.
Well, at least we're funded for 4 years, unlike your analysis.
You never answered the question. Gentlemen, this could erupt, and unfortunately we're completely out of time. I don't know, can you hear me in the background against all this? But I want to extend my thanks to Fianna Fáil Councillor Robert Troy, Fine Gael Councillor Peter Burke, Sinn Féin Councillor Brian Stanley, and Labour Party candidate John Whelan. From me, Will Faulkner, and all the team, we'll chat to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
At Volkswagen, we believe the Polo is the best small